So you can have data without information, but you cannot have information without data. Well, a very good saying, because what typically happens is that we ideally say that uh, the way in which insights actually are created is basis some data. Data in the next level becomes information. From the information you get some intelligence, and from the intelligence then you have analytics, right? You can go beyond this also, wherein we call it as knowledge harvesting, right? But again, that's a different story. We can touch that subject later. Yeah. So what we have to say is that if you don't harvest the data, you might not get the information. That doesn't mean that the information is not hidden in the data. So let's look at a typical scenario, right? So this is a boardroom wherein maybe the marketing head, the sales head, uh, the, the loyalty marketing manager, and all those guys are sitting together, and they are looking at who should we target our product, right, on. So you have data, you have a lot of prehistoric data, maybe 10 years, 5 years, or 2 years, whenever your company has started. You have access to a lot of avenues wherein data is streaming to you, and you want to understand what is the next product you have to make, right? So first, the very basis of all of this is the source of data. You have to identify what are the various sources of data, because that's the most important thing, because analytics is in essence depending upon data. That's your raw material. If you don't have data, you don't have analytics. You don't have algorithms, you don't have equation if there is no data. That's the core essential ingredient for you. And for that, you need to understand what are the various sources of data where you can harvest them and then funnel them, process them, and make them usable for yourself. You need a plan that integrates the data. You need a holistic approach, right? So the data over here is being donated by the customer, not directly. You might have to buy this data, or you might have to acquire this data to partnership, uh, by forging partnership with other channels which collect this data. For example, Twitter, blogs, events, Facebook, right? YouTube, mobile apps, online ads, direct to home TV, direct mails, and all these aspects, microsites. So basically, the customer is always relaying a lot of data about himself, right? So for example, the Google Maps we are using, it basically has a lot of data regarding where essentially do you sleep, right? So maybe the time of the night, right? Typically after 10 o'clock to morning 7 o'clock, what is your location? To be precise, what is the location of your mobile phone, right? So if your data services are on, if you have already given permission for location services, this data has been relayed. If you're traveling from your home to the office every day, and from your office to the home, and you're using Google Maps, or you are using an app based taxi, wherein again you are booking on the app, and again this map is integrated in that app, so again all this data is going, right? So again, you as an individual are donating your data. So I, for example, if I am looking at marketing, say some kind of product to you, and I'm targeting these channels, so obviously I understand that, okay, if I'm using Google Business Services, I would be getting this data, right? So there is a service on Google Map wherein you can list your business, and you can give the details of the business. There is an authentication process for that, and once that happens, if a customer ever indicates that he's searching for a specific service, Google on a chargeable basis will highlight your business address to this customer, that is you, right? So if you happen to fall on that path, obviously Google will show you as a potential market wherein you could go and source whatever you're trying to source. It could be apparels, it could be a pen, it could be anything, right? It depends upon how the market is. Similarly, there is a lot of data being collected from a lot of portals, from a lot of apps, and all of this, in essence, is going to help you in marketing your product, in selling your product, in offering your services, right? So, for example, if Twitter, if somebody has suicidal tendencies and has gone on Twitter and posted something, if something has been off late, been a little bit taken aback with certain event in his life, and The images which he has been posting off late on Facebook and all these things have been reflecting these kind of sentiments. Then some sentiment analysis algorithm being used by Facebook and then integrated to some social website which is taking care of all these aspects and trying to help people who have suicidal tendencies because of certain aspects. They will tap this and they will try to prevent this situation, right? So data needs to be integrated. We need to have a plan for that. So you need to collect data about your customer, but you need to know what to collect. Does this infringe on their rights of security? You cannot just go and collect any data. There are processes for that. So you need to know what are the essential bits of data which you need to collect for you to do your business, for you to provide your services. You would need some typical data like contact information, which would include name, email, mobile numbers. That's essentially how you reach a person today. You would need some demographics indicators such as age, gender, address, marital status. Because, for example, I wouldn't go selling maybe a fancy female shoes to a male, right? It doesn't make sense for me to go ahead and sell maybe a product which is essentially being consumed by people who are married, right? Uh, to people who are not married, right? So a product which is essentially used by married people should not be targeted to unmarried people, right? So I wouldn't target a product which essentially would be required by a kid between the age of 6 to 8 years to a person who is above 60 years. So the demographic indicators or variables typically are used for channelizing your marketing campaigns. Uh, you essentially, if you bombard the market, right, you would require a big campaign budget. If you precisely target it using variables very specifically, you would reduce the cost of marketing and sales, and you would also expect a higher return on investment, right? Your behavioral indicators, which indicate your purchase patterns, your preferred medium of communication, whether you would prefer an voice reply or a text reply or a chat, and the brand engagement level and all these parameters also are somewhere very, very important when it comes to analytics related to customer data, right? So now we understood what all parameters we would we try to understand before we start collecting data. So what data we need to collect, we understood. Where to collect it, we already spoken about it a little bit, but yes, data would be collected maybe through mobile apps, through websites which the customers are going to browse. So there would be some cookie data which obviously helps. So for example, when you're browsing something on Amazon or Flipkart, obviously you get some recommendations. These are nothing but some data which is collected in the temporary files, and based on which Google or Amazon or any of these e-commerce companies which target their customers proposal to you, which sometimes makes sense because you would be looking out for these products, and essentially they bring the market to you. Social media, again, Facebook, right from Facebook to other platforms like Quora, all of these are basically used for selling products, services, or sometimes just informing the clients or the customers about what is happening in the market. Landing pages essential are nothing but your customized proposals for a specific segment of customers, right? So I might be a company which is manufacturing maybe uh, motorbikes, right? But I have different segments. I have an affordable economic budget level product. I have something which is in the mid range, and I might have an expensive one which is for maybe people who want to go off riding or something like that. So it is not possible that a website can have products, but a website cannot channelize that, right? So you need landing pages which essentially talks about a single product or a service and gives the complete product description, uh, the positive aspect of the product, and maybe even the pricing, and funnel the customers so that you spend less time in talking to the customer and give most of the time to servicing the customer, right? That's what landing pages helps you to do. In-store tablets, marketing tools which capture the user behavior, all of these are the avenues wherein you would collect the data, right? So today you would be having, even say for example, something like a virus protection software or an antivirus, which would also have an additional option that you could add their toolbar on your web browser. So when you are browsing Amazon, that toolkit will obviously give you some recommendations and perhaps something which is much more affordable and maybe better than the product which you are actually seeing. So that's also a possibility. So your data is ready, you know what data to collect, you know whose data to collect, you know where to collect the data. Now it's a time to generate insights out of all this data, right? So that you can understand your customer, you can pitch your product correctly to the customer, you in a sense can create a product specifically for your market, for your customer. That essentially is the next phase. So now you integrate your data to develop strategies. So you have one stack wherein you have the sources of data, you have the data collection wherein you have aggregated the data, then you are doing some analytics, obviously about the analytics, how you do behavioral scoring, how you do segmentation, how you do forecasting, which algorithms are good for doing what. All of these things will come in your course as you go ahead. What is essentially important is on-site targeting using different channels like SMS, telemarketing, direct mail, app-based communication, right? So that your product reaches your customer, your idea reaches your customer, you make sure that you are in sync with what your customer is thinking, so that you don't end up creating a product which your customer is not ready to buy. Rather, you create a product which your customer is actually dreaming about, which he has created in his mind for himself. So there you end up end of this year saying that we have pre-made your gift based on your data driven insights from your historic data. So today, using analytics, we have reached a stage wherein you understand the customer's psyche, you predict what can happen before it actually happens, and that would be a brief curtain raiser into the world of analytics.